Welcome back to my channel, where history is made simply. In today's video we are going to be talking on that idol, what if Louis Bonaparte became king of the Netherlands? Stay tuned and watch to the end so you will not miss out. Let's go. In the summer of 1806, a reluctant French prince arrived in the damp, foggy flatlands of the Netherlands. His name was Louis Bonaparte. To the world, he was merely the younger brother of Napoleon. He was a placeholder, a puppet, and a political tool sent to ensure that the newly created Kingdom of Holland obeyed the iron will of Paris. Napoleon's instructions to his brother were brutally simple: strip the Dutch of their wealth, enforce a continental blockade against Britain, and drain the nation dry to fund the French war machine. Napoleon famously told him, "Your first duty is to me, your second to France. All your other duties, even those to the country I have entrusted to you, come after." But Louis Bonaparte did something his brother never anticipated. He looked at the Dutch people, and instead of seeing subjects to conquer, he saw a nation to protect. He refused to be a puppet. In our timeline, Louis's defiance angered Napoleon. By 1810, French troops marched into Amsterdam. Louis was forced to step down, and the Netherlands was taken directly into the French Empire. But what if that never happened? What if Louis Bonaparte successfully defied his brother, kept his throne, and permanently established the Bonaparte dynasty as the true kings of the Netherlands? How would this single act of brotherly rebellion fundamentally reshape the map, the borders, and the global balance of power in Europe forever? To understand how this alternate timeline unfolds, we first have to understand who Louis Bonaparte actually was. In our history, Louis didn't want to go to Holland. But once he arrived, he threw himself into the role with shocking dedication. He tried to learn the notoriously difficult Dutch language. In his very first public speech, attempting to declare himself the King of Holland, his heavy French accent messed up the words, accidentally pronouncing it, "I am the Rabbit of Holland." The Dutch laughed, but they also respected him. Louis forced his French officials to speak Dutch. When terrible floods devastated the country, Louis didn't hide in his palace. He personally walked through the freezing mud to help rebuild the dikes, earning him the title Louis the Good. But Louis's greatest act of defiance was economic. Napoleon's continental system demanded that all European nations stop trading with Great Britain to starve the British economy. But the Netherlands was a nation built entirely on sea trade. Enforcing the blockade meant absolute starvation for the Dutch people. So, King Louis quietly turned a blind eye. He allowed smuggling. He protected Dutch merchants. He actively pushed back against his brother's economic war. This brings us to our point of divergence. In early 1810, Napoleon sent a harsh demand to Louis, enforced a blockade, and sent thousands of young Dutch men to fight in French armies or face immediate invasion. In our timeline, Louis chose to step down to spare his people a bloody war. But in this alternate timeline, Louis finds a crucial political lever. By 1810, Napoleon's attention is already dividing. Tensions with Russia are reaching a boiling point. In this alternate reality, Louis uses this to his advantage. He forms a secret, delicate understanding with Dutch leaders and moderate French commanders. He convinces Napoleon that an outright invasion of Holland would require 50,000 French troops, troops Napoleon desperately needs for his upcoming march on Moscow. Louis compromises. He agrees to pay a slightly higher fee to Paris and sends a small force of volunteers. But crucially, he keeps internal control and keeps French tax collectors out of Dutch ports. Napoleon, arrogant and focused on invading Russia, reluctantly accepts the compromise. The Kingdom of Holland survives as an independent Bonaparte kingdom. Then, the turning point of history arrives in 1812. Napoleon's Grand Army enters Russia and is completely defeated in the freezing winter snow. As the French retreat, the great empires of Europe, Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia, unite in the Sixth Coalition to defeat Napoleon once and for all. In our timeline, when Napoleon fell, the Dutch rose up against French rule and invited the old House of Orange back to lead them. But in this alternate world, the Dutch don't see Louis as a French oppressor. They see him as their king, the man who protected their economy and kept their sons out of the conflict in Russia. As coalition armies approached the Dutch border, King Louis makes a masterstroke of diplomatic survival. He completely breaks ties with his brother. He declares the Kingdom of Holland strictly neutral. He opens Dutch ports to British merchant ships overnight, instantly ending the blockade. When the British fleet arrives, they aren't met with cannon fire. They are met with open markets. Britain, thrilled to have its primary trading partner back, supports Louis's legitimacy. When Napoleon is finally defeated and exiled to Elba, the Congress of Vienna meets to redraw the map of Europe. In our timeline, they created a massive United Kingdom of the Netherlands under the House of Orange to act as a shield against France. In this timeline, they do the exact same thing, but they leave the wildly popular Louis Bonaparte on the throne. Now, we look at the long-term consequences of this new European order. By 1820, the House of Bonaparte is no longer just a French imperial family. It is an established, legitimate Dutch royal dynasty. Louis rules as King Louis I until his passing, succeeded by his son, Louis Napoleon. This creates a massive geopolitical ripple effect. In our timeline, Catholic Belgium fiercely broke away from the Protestant Dutch King of Orange in 1830, splitting the country in two. But Louis Bonaparte was a moderate Catholic ruling a mostly Protestant nation. His unique religious background and his famous tolerance would likely bridge the gap between the Dutch North and the Belgian South. The United Kingdom of the Netherlands remains completely intact, forming an economic and industrial powerhouse in Northern Europe that rivals Great Britain. Even more fascinating is the impact on France itself. In our timeline, Louis's son eventually became Emperor Napoleon III of France. But in this alternate world, he is already the crowned, legitimate king of the Netherlands. He has no need to launch a takeover in Paris. France might have remained a permanent republic. While the Netherlands became the true home of the Bonaparte legacy, history often teaches us that empires are built by those who conquer. But sometimes history is shaped by those who refuse to destroy. By choosing the well-being of his subjects over the wild ambitions of his brother, Louis Bonaparte could have turned the Netherlands into the heart of a lasting Napoleonic dynasty. One built not on bloody conquests, but on dikes, trade, and local loyalty. The next time you look at a map of Europe, remember the French prince who became a rabbit and accidentally challenged the greatest empire of the 19th century. If you enjoyed this deep dive into alternate history, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me in the comments below. What if Napoleon had won in Russia? Or which royal family should we swap next? Until next time, stay hungry for history. Thanks for watching.